What is up, guys? Welcome back to Chats Unfiltered. Oh my lord, I am pumped as hell to get this episode out to you guys. Episode 12 with Tom Morris. He's a senior reporter at Fox Sports. He covers the AFL and he covers the cricket. I see him on telly all the time, and to have him in front of my screen over Zoom to just get all the information out of him, questions I've been wanting to ask him for I don't know how long now, was an absolute privilege. We hit him with some big questions straight off the bat. Things like 10-day contracts in the AFL. Is Geelong's list too old? Who's he going to be picking, Nick Dacos or Jason Horn, if he had the first pick in the AFL draft? So many big questions that he answers. Can't wait for you guys to hear. Also, his early predictions for the AFL season coming up. We then move into his journey, which was just mind-blowing to see how many jobs and what experience he's had to get to where he is now, being a senior reporter at Fox Sports. We then finish off with some Tik Tok content, which I can't wait for you guys to have a laugh to. I'm sure you will. I did. It was absolutely hilarious. And yeah, it was a pleasure having Tom on. Like I said, for him to give up an hour of his time to sit down and let me pick his brain. Super, super grateful. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy the episode, which I'm sure you will. Make sure to leave a review, leave a like, comment. Keep the feedback coming through the social medias, Instagram, Facebook. Absolutely love it, guys. Hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get it. Tom Morris, super happy to have you on Chats Unfiltered. How are you, mate?
Good, Bailey. Good to be here with you. Let's hope we can have a good unfiltered chat.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I can call you Tommy. We're pretty much mates, aren't we?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. What do I call you? Shorty?
Call me Baz, I reckon. That's probably the way to go. I did get called Shorty for most of my younger sort of days playing baseball, but since footy, I like Baz. Baz works well.
Well, let me tell you, I've been called a lot worse than Tommy in my time, so you can call me whatever you want, but Tommy's fine.
I'll stick with Tommy. We're going to go through some big questions, predictions, a little bit about your journey, and a bit of TikTok laughter to finish off with. But to start with, we're going to just crack straight into it, because I know you're obviously senior reporter at the AFL. There was a draft that happened recently, and I am sort of mates, I like to say good mates, with Jason Horn, who went number one. I had him on the podcast on my first ever episode, which was huge.
That's awesome.
Dacos, another big name. In your eyes, obviously they're great, both great players. Sort of lock them down, and who are you sort of going with to build a team around to start with? Big question, question off the mark.
Good question. Well, I think there's a reason that Jason Horne-Francis was pick one. I think Jason Horne-Francis is the best player in the draft. So if I had to, I think Dacos is going to be a star. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's talking Dacos down to say that Jason Horne-Francis is going to be better. But I do think Jason Horne-Francis is going to be an absolute superstar. And I also think he's probably going to be better sooner as well, from what I've seen. I'm no draft expert. I listen to what the draft experts say. By the time the draft comes around, I'm sort of in full cricket mode. But I listen to what the experts say, the list managers, the recruiters, the clubs, and I don't think there was any doubt that he was the best player in the draft. So I'm on his bandwagon.
Yep.
But Dacos will also be a star, clearly. It just might take him maybe just a little bit longer, although he'll probably get games at Collingwood next year because they're so young.
Yeah. Nah, they're both absolute stars.
Is that the right answer?
Yeah, I love that answer, mate. That answer is beautiful. He would love that too. They'll both be absolute stars without a doubt. I did watch Horn closely the last sort of year. He played in the Sandford, and at his age, what he was doing was just absolutely ridiculous. So
yeah, I think there's something to be said for playing against men before you get drafted. I mean, it's still a huge step up, but physically, it's not as big a step up as what Dacos will have to endure, especially given that he's been in Victoria and there's been hardly any footy in Victoria the last couple of years. And when there has been, he's been playing predominantly against people his age. So, if you're gonna have a lead in to an AFL career, I think playing Sandford like Jason Horne-Francis has done is the way to go. So he's ready to go. Round one, watch him.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of criticism last year, especially when they didn't quite get there in the end. Geelong, their list obviously is aging. I sort of was super keen to get your thoughts on that. Like, I personally still see them as premiership contenders. They've got a list of absolute superstars. Do you think that is soon running out, or have they still got a few more years left in them?
No, I think it's running out. But I've been thinking it's running out for about 4 or 5 years, and they keep topping up. So they're in a unique position, Geelong, because they're a big Victorian club that's separate from the rest of the Victorian clubs. So they get players and they rarely lose players. They certainly don't lose stars. They might lose a couple of fringe players to other clubs, but they don't lose stars because everyone who goes there wants to play for them and enjoys the Geelong, Ocean Grove type lifestyle. And the fact that they've been, to varying degrees successful for so long. They won 3 flags in 5 years, but since then, I think have they missed finals once and they came 9th that year. So if you want to give yourself an opportunity to play finals, Geelong is the safest team to go to over the last 15 years. I mean, they're just the facts. I don't think it's beyond the realms they could win the flag this year, but I'm not tipping them for the premiership. The hard thing with Geelong is because they look like they're coming to the end of their list management plan, I guess. And I think they've admitted this as well. At some stage they're going to have to go younger. The hard thing with Geelong is the bar's so high. It's almost like if they don't win the flag, they fail because they're setting everything up to win the flag now. And that is such a high bar to set. If they don't win, it's like, well, they might not be able to get back there again. So, look, I'd put other clubs ahead of them, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they win a flag next year. And I'm a Melbourne supporter, Baz. I would love if Melbourne won the flag again. If not Melbourne, I'd love to see another club, a new team, come up and win a flag. But I like to see the superstars become premiership players. I think it's sad that Nick Riewold's not a premiership player. I think it's unfortunate that Brad Johnson's not a premiership player, and the list goes on. I think Patrick Dangerfield, if anyone ever deserves to win a premiership, I think it's him. I would love to see him win a flag. But most of the other stars have played in flags before. Jeremy Cameron's another one I'd like to see win a flag, but you don't see every gun player win a premiership. And I think they'll play finals. Do I think they'll challenge? I think at their best they can, but I won't be selecting them to make a grand final or win a flag. But who knows? I might be wrong. What is it? Yep. January the 12th. So
I definitely see Geelong as being one of the most criticised teams. Like I remember when for my whole life they've just been playing finals non-stop, and I'm pretty sure they just snuck in one year a while back, and the absolute the criticism that went to them, even though they just made finals, was just they're washed up.
What was that?
This is it.
That was 2018 because Melbourne beat them in that elimination final. And you're right, they finished 8th, but you would have thought they'd finished 15th or 16th.
Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, this is the problem. You set a high bar, don't you, for the Cats, because you expect to be playing for a premiership. I mean, most other clubs are either rebuilding, pushing for finals, or hoping for finals. There's only a couple of clubs that are really realistically thinking we should be in the top 4. Probably 4 or 5 of those clubs. The rest is sort of hoping for the best if they stay fit and things go their way. The Cats, they play a different brand of footy that hasn't traditionally worked in big games. It's more precise. You saw what Melbourne did to them in the prelim final. I wonder whether they're going to change things up this year. I mean, I think they probably should. I'm no expert, again, on the tactics of the game, but I think it would make sense to shake things up and see what they can do with the same group of players as what they've had the last couple of years.
Definitely. So you did mention you're a Melbourne supporter. I'm actually a Gold Coast Sun supporter, long time.
I respect that.
Yep. And trust me, it's been hard. I'll give it that much. Stewie Dew, absolutely love the guy. I think he's an amazing coach, but he has been copping a little bit the last few years. Obviously, they haven't made finals yet, and all that, etc. Alistair Clarkson in that hot spot the last sort of 12 months, really, since the talk began that he wasn't going to be coaching at Hawthorn anymore. Can you see that being a possible move? And if you can, is it beneficial for the Suns to have someone experienced like that come in?
I think if Alistair Clarkson coached anywhere, it would be beneficial. Again, there's probably 4 or 5 clubs that wouldn't consider it because they've got experienced, well-credentialed coaches now. But it would be blatantly wrong if a club like the Gold Coast Suns didn't consider Alistair Clarkson if the vacancy became, a reality towards the end of the season or whenever it would be. The question for me is not whether the Gold Coast Suns want Alistair Clarkson or whether the AFL wants Alistair Clarkson to go to the Gold Coast Suns, because clearly the answer to both is yes. The question is, does Clarkson want to go to the Gold Coast Suns? And I'm not sure of the answer to that. I'm not sure that Clarkson wants to start from the bottom and build a team in a market that's not traditionally footy. I think he likes being in the thick of it. I think he would like to be at a big club if a position became available. Now, a position's not available, so he might sit out another 12 months or 2 years, but he's going to be a very attractive proposition for any club that wants a new coach. And if the Suns do sack Stuart Dew, then then they'll absolutely make a call to Alistair Clarkson. The AFL wants it's twofold. The Gold Coast Suns need to win some games of footy, as you know. You're a Suns supporter. They want to play finals and push for finals and be more competitive more often, which I think they sort of have been, but they're just not winning enough games. And Stuart Dew's record isn't great. But the second element is, and it's broader, is that the AFL needs a competitive Gold Coast Suns to justify the expansion. And they are more likely to be competitive with Alistair Clarkson than they are just with about any other coach. That's not even criticising Stuart Dew. Just Alistair Clarkson's an all-time great coach. So Stuart Dew's got a job ahead of him. He's got a hard year coming up. He needs his good players to be fit. He needs them to play well. He needs his young players to lift. They need to somehow show enough to re-sign Jack Lukosius and Isaac Rankin and Ben King. It's not going to be easy for him or the Suns. But at their best, they showed last year they can win some games of footy and they can play well. The problem is when the wheels fall off the Suns, it's just an absolute disaster. And
it goes downhill.
It's not
completely.
really, that's right. It's not the losses necessarily by themselves that hurt Stuart Dew. It's the extent of the losses and the way in which they lose. Losing by 80, 90, 100 points, that puts the spotlight on them.
Yep, definitely. No, I think the key is, like you said, signing those guys, Jack Lukosius, Ben King, because they are the future. Well, they're the current, really, for the Gold Coast Suns. They need to obviously keep them around and have them performing. On the expansion, obviously, Tassie's been a big topic in the AFL to expand and get another team. Yes or no? Will they have one in the next 5 years?
Oof. I'm going to say no, not the next 5 years. I think the next 10 years they'll have a team. Tassie. Yep. I think COVID has probably made things quite difficult for Tasmania to have a team in the next 5 years. Yep. It's put things back a bit. The finances are clearly the stumbling block. I think more likely in the next 10 years. I would love to see Tasmania have a team ASAP, but, there's realities at play. The Gold Coast Suns are struggling. St Kilda financially is struggling. The AFLW is growing, but again, it's not necessarily an easy competition to run given the semi-pro nature of it. There's a bargaining agreement coming up. There's so many things for the AFL to consider. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot. And a Tasmania team, while it's important, I'm not sure it's at the very, very top of Gil McLaughlin's list right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can't see, as a Suns supporter, going through the struggles. If we still, after 10, 11, whatever years it has been, haven't made finals yet, I can't see you adding another team in completely until that team can actually obviously get somewhere. It'd be pretty hard to do.
And I disagree with people who say relocate the Gold Coast Suns. Leave the Suns on the Gold Coast. Gold Coast is a good location. I know sporting teams haven't worked there in the past, but participation numbers are through the roof. You just need good people at that club to make it more successful. I mean, 5 years ago, people were saying the Brisbane Lions are in a similar boat. I know they're a capital city, or where they reside as a capital city, but the Brisbane Lions, they were losing players left, right and centre. They were a basket case. They turned themselves around with good people. You just need the same at the Gold Coast Suns. The problem is finding those people isn't easy and putting them together. Otherwise, every club would be doing it.
Yeah, exactly right. And AFL in Queensland is booming at the moment. There's been that many people that have retired or, secondhand, obviously, I guess you call players, going and playing in Queensland just because it's a great location. Why wouldn't you want to be in Queensland playing footy? It's always bloody hot. It's warm. It's nice. And it's. I was over there for a little while, a little bit ago, and it's just crazy. The numbers, the young kids coming through that primarily supposed to be a rugby sort of state. It's just AFL central at the moment. So
100%,
to relocate would be disaster.
Why do you go for the Gold Coast Suns? How did you pick the Suns?
Oh, so back, I was playing actually, shout out to Will Day. This is the reason why he plays for Hawks at the moment. We were in a state team together in under, I think, 12s in Little League Baseball. We went to Gold Coast and his cousin's obviously Sam Day. He gave us a bit of a tour around Metricon and I was 11 or 12 at the time. Just said to mum and dad, sorry, going for the Suns from here on out, and stuck with them ever since. Still probably, they say, is the worst decision I ever made because we haven't been winning. But I thought, it's a long story. It's a long time. Even if I'm 80 and they win their first flag, it's going to be
100%. Stick with it.
The beers will be flowing, that's for sure.
Good.
All right, I'm a big fan of the NBA. I don't know if you are. Are you a big fan of the NBA?
I watch the NBA. I'm not a big fan though. And
you're a golfer. I know you're a golfer.
I like golf. I like baseball. I like NFL. I like basketball. I like soccer, but I can't consume it all. So NBA is one of the sports that slips through the cracks for me. But I still enjoy watching it when it's on.
Yep.
But I'm not a huge fan.
the reason I bring up NBA is because they have something which I believe is awesome. It gives people opportunities. They have a 10-day contract, and mid-season in drafts, or in other sports they do, but specifically a 10-day contract. There's been heaps of signings in the NBA lately just because of the COVID injury lists, all that. Is that something that AFL could possibly in the near future, consider bringing in a mid-season trade and a 10-day contract, sort of, maybe not 10 days, but, a contract that's short and can bring people in to give them a chance at AFL level, can help teams out, whether it is because of COVID, because let's be honest, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Do you think that is maybe something that they could play around with?
Yeah, for sure. I think the AFL will investigate all possibilities to be more flexible with their list and the way that lists are built and how they can recover from a COVID outbreak. The AFL will be very hesitant to cancel a game if there's 10 COVID positive cases within a club. But the only way they could probably justify it is if they could justify playing the match is if they could bring players in. I mean, the Big Bash is doing it now. We call it a 10-day contract, call it whatever you want. In the end, it's a short-term deal that allows clubs to have cushioning behind their senior listed players so that games can continue. That would make good sense. There's a few issues off the top of my head that I think the AFL would have to deal with. First and foremost, it's state league clubs losing players on a Thursday night before a Saturday game. Let's imagine the Western Bulldogs need a ruckman and they go to a VFL club and they pick up a ruckman before an important VFL final. And you might say, well, the AFL is more important than the VFL. Well, that's fine, but the structure of the AFL and football in this country is that each competition matters within itself. The SANFL matters. That's why we play for a SANFL premiership. It's not just a development league. It's not there just to produce AFL players. It's there for the clubs. And the traditions of those clubs are still very important. And the same applies in the VFL to varying degrees, depending on what club you're talking about. So that's an issue. The finances are an issue. How much do you pay these players? Occupational health and safety is always a thing as well these days. What if a player gets injured? What about the insurance? And I think the AFL will need to work out exactly what its priorities are. If its priorities, like the Big Bash, I use the Big Bash as an example at the moment, are just to push on regardless, then they need to be able to allow players to come in on a short-term basis. If their priority is the integrity, then they probably need to cancel and postpone some games, like what's happening in the NBA, like what's happening in the English Premier League, and then get back to playing those games later on in the season, which is hard because then you backlog it. So the league will need to work that out. But I think philosophically, I think it makes sense to have some sort of mechanism to allow players to come in on a short-term basis.
Yep, definitely. There'd be a lot of things involved, obviously, with that. Let's move to cricket, because obviously you're a cricket fan as well. You play cricket. Not sure if you still do. You probably give it up just because, I don't know if you're still making.
I play as much as I can. I've used to play more, but I play as much as I can.
Yeah. We got one cricket question, and it's a big one. It's been the last 3 days. It has been all over social media. It's the perfect dilemma that Australia have, is they have great batsmen all round that they can choose from. Are you picking Usman over Harris?
Yes, I'm picking.
You are picking Usman.
Harris. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Marcus Harris man. Let me just say that off the top. I think Marcus Harris, his Test record doesn't reflect his talent. I don't think he should drop down to 6th or 7th in the pecking order if he gets dropped. I think he should be the next opener in. I think that he should get another opportunity, even though his overall record isn't great. If you actually break it down, when he came into the team, he played the Test matches against India when Smith and Warner weren't there. And for that series, although he didn't make 100, he was Australia's highest run scorer. So he had a good series without being great. He then went to England and he failed a lot. He had a terrible series. So did David Warner. So did Usman Khawaja. So did Travis Head. Pretty much so did everyone apart from Matthew Wade, Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith. And lots of English batsmen. So it was hard over there. And that series, although it's important to keep it in the back of your mind, was a bowler-friendly series, and that reduces his average right down. That makes his overall record look pretty ordinary. He then plays the Ashes here, and I think before Usman Khawaja's first innings ton at the SCG, Harris's 76 at the MCG was the best innings of the summer. I think that was better than Labuschagne's 100 in Adelaide. I think it was different, but probably more important to the result than Travis Head's 150 in Brisbane. Unbelievable knock. But the blatant reality is when you have someone that makes 200 in a test match, you cannot drop them. The selection integrity, you just can't do it. So people will say, well, how can Khawaja go from number 5 to open? Khawaja can bat anywhere. There were questions whether Khawaja could bat at number 5. Yeah, he never batted at number 5 in Test cricket before this Test match. He makes 200s. He averages 97 opening the batting from a small sample size for Australia. He can bat at 3, he can bat at 4, he can bat at 6. He's a well-rounded game. So dismiss that as an issue. He can bat anywhere. I also think the selectors have an obligation to pick the most informed players, and clearly Khawaja is more informed than Harris. Head has to come back in, I think, because of his innings at the Gabba, and the fact that he was named vice captain for Adelaide. I think Travis Head, his form has been good this summer. So it's a hard one, but I don't see what selection group of people in their right mind could drop someone after making 200s in a row.
Yeah, nah, it just can't happen. If that happens as a player, you literally can ask the question and be like, what more did I have to do? I made 200s, obviously in a row. I'm a huge fan of Harris as well, but obviously you're not putting up numbers. Usman's just come out and done what he's done. Don't like you said, don't go dropping 5th, 6th in the pecking order. Like, you are the next person in, because who knows, there might be an injury. Touch wood, there isn't. Go the Aussies, but you just never know. So yeah, I definitely agree. Usman in, Harris out. Biggest question of them all, Tommy. AFL players these days are getting really into social media and TikTok especially. I know you're into TikTok. We'll talk about that at the end because it's going to be a bit funny. But I don't know if you've seen many AFL players, but who, in your opinion, has the best TikTok account in the AFL, or we'll say cricket, because obviously you're a man of both sports.
Oh God, who do I actually follow? I follow Jake Fraser McGurk, the cricketer. He has lots of posts lots of golf shots, and I like golf, and he whacks it. I love his swing, like really aggressive swing. What footy players post TikToks? I can't remember.
I'm a huge fan. I don't know if it was actually his account or his missus' account, but Paddy Cripps got a TikTok taken of him a while back, and it was him dancing, and that was the funniest video. I will still go back and have a laugh to this day at that video. It was just hilarious, because you think AFL players, they should be pretty coordinated, and they try to dance, and it's like, what is happening? It is ridiculous.
There's nothing more funny than watching someone who you think is a really coordinated athlete try to dance. Exactly. I agree. I have seen that one. I don't think I follow a lot of footy players on TikTok, but I do like TikTok. It's a happy place.
Yeah, it's definitely a happy place. And I know you do love it. We'll be talking about it a bit after. I love your TikToks. I did have a look today before we jumped on, so it's good. Good quality stuff. All right, we're going to flick through some predictions really quickly before we talk about your journey. Brownlow medalist, who have you got for this coming year?
Oh, I haven't even thought about it yet. It's still January, so I'm not even in footy mode. Early prediction. Don't hold me to it. Clayton Oliver.
I love it. Coleman medal.
Jeremy Cameron.
Oh, I like it. Who's winning the flag? You can say your D's if you like, back to back.
Hard to go past the D's. I think the D's will do it back to back. And how good would that be the MCG?
Love it. All right, this is your role, your job. Off the top of your head, a big headline that we may read this year. Off the top of your head.
Well, I think the obvious one is match cancelled due to bulk COVID cases.
Yeah.
And that might be on the day of the match, which will leave us with no footy some days or some nights.
Yeah.
What's another? I think there's going to be. I think the pay discussions between the AFL and the Players Association will heat up. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some pretty heated articles around that.
Ooh,
the players want a slice of the pie. The AFL is making a lot of cash, but the AFL's also got the best interest of the game at heart and trying to develop the game at junior level. So there's always a squeeze there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it blew up at some point.
Yep, definitely. I love podcast Dylan Friends, Liz Cloggers, Dill Buckley, Daniel Gorringe, and they do always joke about when they were on an AFL list that people think they're making this extraordinary money, and when you're on, especially your first few years, you're really not making a whole lot. And so that would be a real interesting heated conversation.
True. I always think about that myself. For every Nat Fyfe or Dangerfield or Buddy Franklin, fantastic. There are 20 players on, let's say, under $150,000 a year. And you might say, well, $150,000 is a lot of money. And it is compared to the average population. But let's not forget that these players, although they're playing footy and although they're making six figures, they actually don't have any career certainty. They're pushing their body to the absolute limit. They can't have a couple of weeks off in July and go away with their partners or their family. They've got mandated holidays. And the other thing is that they might not have a job next year, but they can't prepare for that properly. They can semi-prepare. They can't properly prepare for what's ahead because they're focused on the now. So imagine being in August and you don't know whether you're going to be playing AFL footy next March or trying to look for another job.
Yep.
So I've got a few guys who played AFL, a few mates who played AFL, or were on AFL lists, and they only on a list for 2 or 3 years, and they got delisted, and it put them back 2 or 3 years. So I'm not trying to say that they've got it really hard. It's a shocking lifestyle. It's not. But I don't think being an AFL footballer, unless you are a genuine superstar, is as good as what people think it is. I think it's hard yards for a lot of these players. And they're in the media spotlight as well. So there's nowhere they can go to hide.
Yeah, exactly. And I have so many people I know saying, but they're living the dream. They're playing AFL. And you know what? Yeah, I would love to play AFL. I agree with that. They're living, a great life, but they give up so much. And obviously the last few years with COVID, you've got guys moving away from family. And it's like, you think about that like FIFO work, really. Like those people having to leave their families, leave their friends. And it's not all it's made up to be a lot of the time, but obviously footy's great. Being able to play that for a living is also a dream.
I would have loved to be an AFL player, but it's a
lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And for most of them, they don't play in premierships. They don't play mini games or any games. It's not much reward.
Yep. I remember seeing like the average time in the AFL is just ridiculously low. Like the average player is only on the list for like a year or two or something. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, a couple of years. There's a high turnover. Yeah. And this is the thing, like, again, let's say you're on $150,000 a year, which is great. And it's great for that moment, but it doesn't set you up for life. It doesn't set you up for 3 or 4 years' time. So I think the public need to keep that in mind when they're assessing AFL footballers. Yes, it's awesome, but by the same token, it's also very difficult for them.
Yep, definitely. All right, 2 more predictions, Rising Star and Wooden Spoon.
Rising Star, Jason Horne-Francis. Wooden Spoon.
Don't you dare say it.
No, I'm not going to say it. I think Collingwood will struggle. And I think they'll struggle. I think they'll be they're going to be a very young team. So I might say them or the Gold Coast Suns are the other one. Sorry.
Yep, that's all right. I'll cop it. I'm still praying on finals this year. I've got this good feeling about it. A lot of people will laugh at that, but I'm sticking with them. All right, we'll get into your journey really quickly. I'd love for you to go over. So you started Melbourne Grammar School, and you were captain of first cricket, which is good.
You've done your research. Who have you spoken to?
No one. Definitely haven't spoken to anyone. You went to obviously uni, and you started Bachelor of Journalism, major in sport. Intern at the Back Page, and then from 2013 to present, you worked a number of roles: St Kilda's digital coordinator, freelance sports journalist, tab, AFL boundary writer, cricket reporter, everything you can pretty much name, until you got obviously to where you are now, senior reporter of the AFL. Like for me, this is like you to me right now. This is actually awesome. Like when we were messaging, I was like, I can't believe I'm telling my mates, oh, we've got Tom Morris coming on. Like this is actually really cool because take me back a year. I was going to study journalism, and I was like, you were obviously someone that was at that high level. I was like, how cool would that job be? So having you on today is really cool, cool experience.
I appreciate that, mate. I'm just a normal guy.
But yeah, so sort of talk us through. I'd love to hear a quick highlight or just general chat from those experiences from high school to where you are to today, and how it developed you as a person.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm really big on, and I'm conscious of this with my friends and family and people around me, is that, although, I work at Fox Footy and I have a job that I think many people would like because it's involved in sport and, you get to do cool stuff and meet cool people. I'm very conscious not to be defined by my job, because what happens is, and I've seen a number of times with other people, they've got really good jobs, and then they lose that job or something goes wrong and it ruins their whole life. So I'm really conscious to continue to see my friends, can continue to, do the right thing by my family, my girlfriend, and have a life outside of my job, which is hard because, the job is all encompassing. People want to talk about footy and cricket all the time, and they assume that you want to talk about footy and cricket all the time, which is fine. I'm not criticizing them for that. But sometimes the thing I love doing the most is getting away from footy, especially in that cut in the deep winter months. I actually enjoy getting away from footy because otherwise it just becomes your entire life. And as I said, if things go wrong in the future, who knows? Like, everyone's replaceable. If I got sacked or, if I lost my job, got made redundant, I've had friends who were made redundant the last year or two because of COVID, then I don't want my life to fall in a heap. I want other things to fall back on. So that's really important. That's really important to me, to not be defined by the job that I have. In saying that, it is a big part of my life. I spend a lot of time working on footy in the winter and cricket in the summer. I love footy. I think footy is the best sport in the world, but I love cricket even more. Mainly because I love working on cricket even more. Mainly because it's a bit more relaxed. It's not quite as intense as the footy atmosphere. And it's not like I got a job at Fox and it was all planned before then. Like, I went to university like anyone else. I did lots of free work, hundreds of hours of work where I didn't get paid, met a few people. And what I began to realize after a while was there was no rhyme or reason to it. It wasn't like I was getting this opportunity because I'd met this person. It was more like I'd met a lot of people and then just something happened to pop up. And then I knew that person, so something happened to pop up there. Yep. So the main advice I give to anyone is that you just need to meet as many different people as you can, show them that you're reliable and you can do good work, and then things sort of just work out as long as you're sort of all those things I've said before. But, I went on Saturdays for an entire season. I went to watch the Northern Footy League and wrote match reports. Then I got a job at St Kilda Footy Club, which was awesome. And once you're sort of in the system, then it's okay. But I think, there's so many angles I could take. That the journalism industry is one thing, and I'm passionate about journalism, but sport is a great place to be as well. Cricket, footy, I'd love to do more work on soccer and tennis, other sports too. And there's not one day that goes by that I take it for granted. Like, I've got gratitude with how much people have helped me. And that's part of the reason I'm happy to do this podcast, for example, because so many people have helped me. And if I can offer one bit of wisdom, one little nugget that you take on and it helps you, then I'm happy to do that. Not that I'm an oracle. There's a lot more experienced and knowledgeable people than me, but the best thing you can do is pay it forward and help others, because so many people have helped me.
Yeah, that's unreal. Like I said, I appreciate you obviously coming on, and that's what it means. To me, it's great to hear that, you are working a job that many people, like you said, would aspire to have. It does look like a lot of fun. You're obviously involved in the AFL, or involved in cricket as a young person growing up. That's what you want to be around in a full-time job. But it is the other side of, it sometimes can run your life. And when you leave work, a lot of the time you don't want to. That's like a normal job. If you're a carpenter and you leave work, you don't want to go home and do carpentry.
For sure.
You're working at Fox Sports, talking about cricket and footy all day and all night.
Yeah.
You don't want to go home and just continuously talk about it, because you might lose that passion for it. But that is unreal.
That's true. That's why like social media is dangerous as well, because I log on to Twitter. It's just my job. Instagram more and more is becoming my job. You turn on the TV and all I want to do is watch sport and see what's going on in the world. But it's very hard to switch off sometimes in the winter. In the summer, it's a bit easier. Again, not complaining, but it's just something I need to get better at, to be able to switch off so I don't get burnt out. Because a lot of people in the media burn out. There's a lot of people that end up really not enjoying sport because it runs them dry. And I don't want to be one of those sort of stale old journalists or reporters or hosts or whatever I'm going to be that ends up not liking the sport that you work on. Because I've got mates and lots of people I know who've got jobs that they either don't like or are impartial towards. And every Monday they go to work and dread that day of work. And there's plenty of people in that position. And I'm lucky I'm not in that position. So I don't want to be, not for 1 second do I take that for granted.
Yep. So for a bit of insight, sort of, so if you are sitting on, the couch, you're off the clock. Anyone else that's off the clock, they're not answering their phone to their boss. They're saying, get stuffed. You're on the couch. You just want to watch, a game of Big Bash or a game of footy, and there is a headline that breaks out. You're off the clock. Are you then switching on to work mode? Are you on Twitter? Are you on social medias? Or is that not your sort of specific role at that time? So that's someone else's job to report that?
My role at Fox initially was shift work. So I'd get in at 7. My shift that I'd often do is 7 to 3. I'd get in at 7. I'd probably write between sort of 5 to 6 or 7 articles, and walk out at 3. And that was pretty much it. That was shifts. That was 2016, 2017. And then I got a couple of things worked my way, and I got a promotion at the start of 2018. And it became apparent to me very quickly that my work wasn't shift work anymore. I was on call all the time. But that means, for example, I can play golf on a Wednesday as long as I'm ready to switch into work mode if something happens, because I work a Saturday, Sunday, so you can sort of take a Wednesday off. But I'm on call now. Like, I've got the cricket on the TV, the cricket's right there. I've got my phone here.
Yeah.
If I've got a text message from someone, or a call from someone saying this is happening, I'll say, sorry, Bailey, I've got to jump off. I've got to do this work. So, yeah, I'm on call all the time. I went for a family holiday to Airlie Beach in June. My girlfriend, my sisters and their partners, and mum and dad. And I turned all social media off my phone for a week. And it was liberating. It was awesome. Like, being away. This is in the middle of footy season, and I told people I was doing it. But I missed so much. Like, I missed a number of stories. So... yeah, I'm on call all the time, but I've sort of got used to that, and that's just the way. And that's just the way it is. Again, in the cricket season, it's nowhere near as full on as what it is in the footy season. From March through to September, it's very rare to, am I able to have sort of any extended period of time where I'm not doing some sort of work. And doing work doesn't mean writing an article. Doing work might be just calling someone, texting someone, just having a chat with someone, meeting up with someone. So work encompasses a number of different methods. It's not just writing an article or talking about it on TV.
Yeah, no, that's unreal. Always on the clock. Always on the clock.
Trying to be always on the clock.
Exactly right. You talked about a few years. Obviously, you were writing articles and all that. And that comes to my last sort of question before we get a little bit funny to end the episode. I did try to have a look at a few, but what is your biggest sort of story, broken or just recorded, that you can really think of that may have maybe, I guess, not made you who you are, but it might have been a big effect on, this is actually what I really want to do for work. And, I want to do this for a long time because this was a massive story and it just made you feel, real part of it. Well,
I think when I started working at Fox, I didn't know that I wanted to be a news breaker. Like, I was happy to just write content. If Jonathan Brown says something on TV about a club, I'm happy to write that article that Jonathan Brown says this about this club, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know that I wanted to be a news breaker. But then I broke I broke the story in 2017, there was a big 2017, there was a big pay dispute between the Australian cricketers and the Cricket Australia. And I broke the story that had been resolved. And it gave me, I didn't expect, it gave me an unusual kick. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I broke another little story about Jamie Elliott for Collingwood. Had an injury that no one had written about. And I got word that this was the case. And I wrote that story and people started to take note that I was breaking footy stories. So it sort of gave me this thirst for doing something that I didn't know, I didn't think I'd want to do. Or I hadn't really considered it. I just sort of going with the flow and doing and learning and seeing what was going on in the industry. And then at the start of 2018, I broke a story. Bomber Thompson's house had been raided for drugs. The police had raided his house. So I was sitting at the SCG working on the cricket. I'd flown myself there to work for Fox because I wanted to be a part of the media box and see what it was all like. So I was staying with a mate and I love being part of it. I got this word that Bomber Thompson's house had been raided. I double checked it out and it ended up being true. So I wrote that story and that just blew up. Like my Twitter feed went poof like that. Yeah. I was like, whew, wow, okay, this is sort of big. So then from there, I got a promotion after that. I guess they thought, well, he can break a story, he can do that. But I really didn't see it coming. And a couple of months later was the Adelaide training camp that I did, which blew up even bigger than I thought. I mean, you're in Adelaide. If you ask any Adelaide supporter about the Adelaide training camp, they'd know all about it.
We know all about that, mate.
We know all about that. But I don't know what the biggest story I've done is, but those are the stories that have probably, made me more of a newsbreaker than what I ever thought I would, because they gave me a little kick along. Sometimes the stories that you think are your best are not the biggest. Sometimes you work really hard for a story, and it might be Jeremy Cameron's hurt his hamstring, which is big in the footy news cycle, but in a year, no one's going to remember. But you've had to speak to 8 different people to get that story. You'd had to work out exactly what's going on. So, all those, and being able to do footy and cricket's really important to me. I love what AFL.com do, but I could never work at AFL.com because I need to be able to do cricket in the summer. If I had to do footy all year round, I'd go insane. And by the time cricket's finished, I'm looking forward to footy. By the time footy's finished, I'm looking forward to cricket. So it's important to have that balance of sports as well.
Yeah, that's unreal. There's so much that goes into it, obviously, and then checking over and over again to make sure what you're about to release is all facts, because I could not think of anything worse than releasing an article or having a big headline and it's just absolutely come back to bite you in the arse and it hasn't been true. So
yeah, well, I know on the Sounding Board podcast, Craig Hutchison and Damien Barrett always talk about how close they are to the edge of the cliff. If you're a journalist that is constantly on the edge of the cliff, you're probably getting 3 or 4 and 10 incorrect or slightly wrong. Equally bad is if you're too far back from the cliff. You're probably never breaking a story. So the hardest thing to decipher when you're trying to get a story is not whether the story is right or wrong. Sorry, it is whether the story is right or wrong. But sometimes people tell you something and they are adamant that they're correct, and they're not lying to you. They think in their heart they're correct, but they end up being wrong. For example, someone said to me the other day that Marcus Harris has COVID after the MCG test.
Big cool.
They said, lock it in. Marcus Harris has got COVID. I went, okay, so I went and chased it up, and he didn't have COVID. He'd had a test, and he was waiting around in Melbourne because he was a close contact of Travis Head.
Yep.
But he didn't have COVID. And I went back to this person. I said, Marcus Harris doesn't have COVID. He's a close contact. This guy's going, I'm telling you, Marcus Harris has COVID. Anyway, he ends up not having COVID, so I'm right. This person had got dodgy information from someone else, only slightly dodgy. The truth was that he was being tested and that he was isolating, but he didn't have COVID. So it was about, it was 30% wrong, but it was enough wrong to embarrass me if I wrote it. So I didn't write it, and I ended up being correct. But that's a classic example of someone telling you something, thinking they're right, but I can't trust that person not because they're a liar, but because they don't have the same level of, fact checking is what I would as a journalist. And that's a really important thing that you don't get taught in uni, really. I've had to learn that. I've had to learn that if you told me, Bailey, you've done your hamstring, I can go with that story because it's about you. You know that you've done your hamstring. But if you told me that one of your mate's brother's cousin, who's an AFL player, has done their hamstring, you might be 100% correct in your mind. But in all likelihood, there's some sort of incorrect element to that story that means I need to go chase it elsewhere.
Yep, exactly right. And I think we can both agree that one of the biggest, I guess you can say, mistakes made, Cornsey, about Sam Walsh. I love when people bring it up because it's just, Sam Walsh is an absolute superstar. And I just love the way Cornsey has to now back up his talk. But he's obviously great in the media. I love it.
I'm a big Kane Corns man. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I disagree with some things he says, and some things I think, you're well off the mark there. But I cannot stand former players in the media that don't give their opinion. Like, their job is to be a pundit. Their job is to give us their expert opinion on footy matters. And I think Kane Corns is fearless in how he gives those opinions. And I disagree with a few of them, but I can't begrudge the way he goes about it. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Just the courage he has as well, just to say it and obviously run with it and back it up. Yeah, I think it's huge and I love it. All right. We're nearly getting to that point, so we're going to finish off with a bit of TikTok laughter. You are quite the dancer, mate. I've loved your videos. I'm pretty sure your girlfriend is in the backgroend. I've seen her a little bit pop her head
yeah,
back.
She's just here. She's behind me now.
She's in a few.
No,
she's in a few of the TikToks that you post. What is your favourite trend at the moment? Do you have any, or do you just sort of go on and just have a pick and have a bit of a laugh?
I go through stages. I tell myself I'm not going to do any more TikToks because it's embarrassing. And then I end up getting COVID. I'm in isolation for 7 days and do 3 TikToks in that time. So, I don't know. Like,
I was a huge Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey, breathe. I love that TikTok. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yes, I did. I'll tell you a story about Josh Giddey, actually.
Yeah, go on.
I'm not a huge NBA fan, but Josh Giddey sent me a message on Instagram saying, "Hi Tom, what number do you think I'd go in the AFL draft?" This was about draft time in November.
No, he did not.
And this is how embarrassing I am, because I didn't know who Josh Giddey was. So I Googled his name. I was like, oh, this guy's a pretty big deal. This is in November, by the way. So I Googled his name. Like, it's a big deal. And I said, oh, I don't know why. He goes, oh, I don't know. I'm just having a discussion with my mate what number I'd go in the draft. I said, I don't know, maybe pick 20 to 25. And that was it. That was a conversation. And then he goes and has triple doubles everywhere. Like, he's on fire this NBA season. So I've got an eye on him going, he's ridiculous. And I'm embarrassed. I didn't know who he was at the time. But again, I don't really follow Australian basketball closely at all, and that probably proves it. But now I've got one eye on Josh Giddey for the rest of his career, because I feel like him and I have a special bond.
Yeah, bloody oath you do. He's youngest player to record a triple double. He's absolute superstar in the NBA at the moment. He's probably not quite top 3, but they're definitely in line for sort of that rookie year. That is literally, I can't believe you didn't know who he was. That is I
know. I told a couple of my mates, and they're like, "Are you serious? It's Josh Giddey." And it's awkward. It's like when it's like when my mum says, like, oh, like, who's that? And it's like Mark Waugh. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
You should know that is. But again, if you're not in that mold, if not in that world, then you just obviously don't know who they are. I mean, I'm so deeply embedded in footy and cricket and soccer and golf. I don't really take any notice of the basketball, but now I do with Josh Giddey. Anyway,
so what you're saying is, if you message back saying, "I reckon you go number 1, mate," he could have possibly played in the AFL. That's what you're telling me. No,
I'm not going that far. I don't think he's thinking about switching. I just think he was interested in my thoughts because he's having a discussion with a mate. But
that's hilarious.
Absolutely bizarre. In terms of the TikToks, I don't try to take myself too seriously. Like, they're not everyone's cup of tea. That's fine. I don't do it to get a big fan base. I don't do it to make money. I don't have a blue tick. Obviously, I just think TikTok's a happy place, and I like being a part of it.
Yep, definitely. Well, I want more. I expect more dances. Keep you posted. You'll be on a few of Chats Unfiltered TikTok and on the page. So keen to get you on, mate. It's been awesome. I've obviously we've been trying to get around this interview for a little while now, and super honoured to have you on. Grateful. Couldn't thank you enough, and having that hour just to pick your mind, mate. Obviously, like I said, I was super keen on journalism a year back, and still am hugely excited about what's coming in that sort of industry. And it's been awesome having you on, mate. Grateful, appreciate it, and thanks for coming on Chats Unfiltered.
No worries. Thanks, Bailey. Awesome stuff. Keep it up with the podcast, and if I can give you one bit of advice, just keep producing as much content as you can. Podcasting, writing, editing, doing everything you can to fine-tune your skills, which you're clearly doing. So thanks for having me on.
Awesome, mate. Thank you. Appreciate it.